Hey, it's Let's Talk Tuesday. I'm Yvonne McCoy, women's business strategist. I'm here to help you elegantly navigate your time and your talents so that you can align your business and your personal lives for maximum impact. Today, I want to talk to you about your time system. For the past 5 days last week, we were working on the time challenge to find more time for you. But the important part of the challenge really is, what are you going to do with that extra time for you? And the reason why this teaching was a little bit different on time is because not only did I give you the strategies, but I wanted you to really think about your time on a higher level, about what you want to accomplish and have that big impact. And so Let's Talk Tuesday is always about being able to be available so I can answer any questions that you have about anything. And it's also to share things that I've learned. So right now, what I've done is I've learned several things this week during the challenge that I want to share, as well as several things that people have asked about in terms of time. And I'm going to start that with, the idea that you have a personal system for you. And that personal system needs to include being proactive, because that really is the key to everything, is in terms of time, is to thinking about things ahead of time so that you've got lots of options, because the more options you have, the more control you have. And so things, when they happen, you don't catch you off guard. So the two things that I want to start with is prioritizing and the quality of your work, as areas that seem to be a lot of questions around that. So, the question is, how do I prioritize what I'm doing? And prioritizing is tricky. And so I talked about being proactive. I think the other thing that's really important is that you have to look at things in a situational vein as well. So that's why prioritizing can be tricky. I'm typing something into the chat box, so I'm going to say hi. Tell me who you are. And so the person that just joined us, if you've got a question, please put it in the chat box, all right? So I'm going to go back to prioritizing. Prioritizing is situational, and so are so many things in our life, and that's the part that makes it seem difficult to us. I mean, because I think we want hard and fast rules about how to handle things. And unfortunately, life is not like that. Life is much more fluid. And so you have to be able to, I always go, it's not about being an off and on switch, like yes or no. It's more about being a dimmer switch. How can I adjust this for the situation that I'm in? So there are lots of ways that you can prioritize things. You can prioritize it by the time, by the money, by the resources, by the impact. And impact is probably one of the things we neglect the most. And so I want to make sure that when you're looking at prioritizing, you're looking at those kinds of things. Now, when it comes to time, I'm going to give you a fairly simple example. And it's the old boulder, boulder in the jar thing. So you've got a container that you have to put casts in. You've got a certain amount of time. So, they always say, put the boulder in, put the rocks in, and then put the sand in, right? And so that is a great model. The problem comes when we're looking at different amounts of time. So if I'm looking at a short period of time, a boulder might be my 15-minute Tai Chi workout, because it takes up a set amount of time and it would take up the bulk of the time. If I'm looking at 2 hours, that same boulder is now more like sand or a stone. And so that's the part where people have trouble adjusting when you have a model or you're trying to follow something that's a hard and fast rule. So that's one of the things that I want you to look at is the situation that you're in. Again, when you're looking at prioritizing, in one situation, money may be the big issue, maybe the big thing that you're prioritizing for. So if you're at work, it may be a budget issue. Do I have a budget? How can I stay in budget? What kind of resources do I need? But if you're doing something with family and friends, or with your children, then the big thing about prioritizing may be that you're talking about the time. So when you prioritize, you have to look at the situational thing about how you are handling the prioritization. Okay. So again, like I said, with the time issue, something that's a big boulder in a small amount of time may be the sand in a big amount of time. And so that's what you want to take a look at. The next thing is that people have asked me about is, kind of based around the quality of work. All right. So, am I doing concentrated work? Am I doing busy work? Should I multitask? Should I not multitask? And so this is what I'm going to say to you. I tend to multitask, but I've decided that when I multitask, I'm going to say it fits into the category of mindless multitasking, that I'm putting several things together. So that means, folding clothes and watching TV. It means listening to, or watching a video from somebody that I've downloaded and cleaning my desk. All right. So in that sense, you can multitask and you can put tasks together and get a lot done. And, I have to tell you that I am a fan of Zoom, but I do have a pet peeve about people who are multitasking when they're on Zoom. If you're going to multitask when you're on a call, then take yourself off video. I don't want to see you eat. I don't want to see you walk around, take yourself off video and multitask. I mean, it's probably a perfect time to do that, particularly since a lot of calls take 10 minutes or so to really get to the meat of whatever you're doing. And I have to be honest, when I do, classes and stuff, I go, okay, don't multitask, blah, 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 blah. But I know people do. So, there are mindless multitasking things that you can do that don't take away from your concentration. Now, if you are really doing work that you have to concentrate on, and it really requires all of your attention, then I think multitasking is a bad thing. It's taken me a while to kind of get there and realize, put multitasking into two categories, what I call the mindless multitasking and what I call, the multitasking of big projects. When you have big, important projects, you do not focus as well when you're trying to multitask. And my answer to that is to work on things for a much shorter period of time. So that's when the 45-minute hour comes into, so that you can, really focus and concentrate, really get the work done, and then put it aside, even if you're not finished it, and work on something else. And one of the things that does is it keeps your energy up when you come back to it, as opposed to if you work on something for like 2 or 3 hours, your energy and your focus will dwindle, and you don't get as big, an input into what you're doing. So those are the two things that I think a lot of the questions came into. How do I prioritize? How do I look at the quality of the work that I'm doing, and where does multitasking fit into that? There are a lot of other strategies in terms of time management. One, of course, is, and this has to do with prioritizing too, is to always have your personal why you're doing what you're doing, all right, and how it's going to improve the impact of what you're doing. It also is important to take a look at how that works. I mean, how well that works. So for instance, I used to get up and study in the morning when I was in graduate school because I was too tired to do it at night. And that seemed like a really good idea. And then I would go to class, I would read whatever I was going to read. I would go to class, and then I would have to read it again. All right. And one day I got sick, and I didn't read before I went to class. And when I came home and read, it made so much more sense to me. Now, I still read it in the morning when I was fresh, but what I realized was that reading it before I actually listened and saw him do examples was not very effective for me. And so my personal why was, part of it was I wanted to get the information, I wanted to understand it, I wanted to graduate, but I also needed to do it in a way that was really effective for me, okay? And so that effectiveness was doing the reading afterwards. So when you come up with your system, you know, it has to be your personal system that you can put together. It may not make any sense to anybody else, but as long as it works for you, that's all that really matters, okay? What I learned is, you know, this was before I really learned that I was a visual learner. And so I need to see it first, okay? Even to this day, I need to see things or see examples of things before I can really, you know, dive into it and really get it. So that's another part of prioritizing and, you know, organizing. When you are doing time management, some of the things, another big kind of model to take a look at is, can you delegate? Can you automate? Can you eliminate? All right, so those are three things that if you can, you know, put a couple of things in each of those buckets, you're going to be so much further on. So let's talk about delegation for a minute. And we're talking about not only at work, but at home as well. And delegation can also be outsourcing. All right, so one of the things that you may want to delegate is you might at home, you might want to delegate chores, or you may want to get somebody to come in and clean for you, okay? One of the advantages of delegating is that as you're finding information about a certain thing, you can give that information to the person that you're delegating to, so you don't have to keep thinking about it. So if you're working on a project and you know that there's a certain part you're going to delegate to somebody else, start a folder or a memo of the things that you're finding. Be sure you look at this, include this. Is, you know, can we find out more about this? So that that part is off your, you know, off your to-do list. And not only that, but you don't forget it, which is what happens a lot, particularly when we're shifting back and forth. Automation means, you know, can you set up a system where, you know, like your bill pay, that it's automatic, you know, you put your bill pay on automation, okay? Can you do certain deliveries on automation? Can you set up, have your, you know, delegate to your staff to set up certain meetings that they're already, you know, going to be at a certain time, and then you don't have to figure it out. And, you know, what I find about having regular meetings is that if you cancel a meeting, nobody cares. Everybody's really happy. Great. I have this time free. If you try to have a meeting and people are not expecting it, they all hate it. So that's another thing that you can automate, is say, you know, we're going to have our staff meeting every Wednesday morning. And then, you know, every couple of Wednesdays you cancel it because there's nothing new to talk about, or you can do it in an email. And that takes care of that. Eliminating is the harder thing, because a lot of the things that need to be eliminated have to, you know, are things that we've done for a really long time. They may not really have a lot of value, but we're used to doing them, so we keep doing them. And the other thing about elimination is you may have to eliminate people and groups. I mean, this past fall, when I was making some big changes and I was enrolled in a couple programs, I dropped out a couple of my support groups because I just felt like I wasn't getting that much from them, and I needed to be able to focus on what I was doing, okay? So that was, you know, another thing to eliminate. You may eliminate, you know, things that are like, once a month you go to a certain place because that's what you've always done. And, you know, if you're going there to buy something, you may find that, you know, you can get that another way, and that eliminates that kind of distraction. So that's what we did with time this week. We talked about prioritizing. We talked about the quality of the work. Again, when you're delegating, automating, or eliminating, that has a lot to do with your to-do list. I mean, some people like a to-do list. I think it's good because I think you should write it down and get it out of your head. But it shouldn't be too detailed and it shouldn't be too long, otherwise you won't get to it. And some of the other strategies about time are managing distractions, all right? And one of the ways that you can do that is by learning to say no. And saying no sometimes can be hard, and so you may have to say not now. You know, you have to work your way into it. So that's about all I have today. We've had a couple people drop in and out. They've been very shy and they haven't asked any questions. So if you have any comments, if you're looking at this after the fact, please send me a comment. Please ask me a question you'd like to know about. And I just want you to know that when you are doing time, it's really important to know about what your personal why is, what your values and your beliefs are, so that the decisions that you make are going to be better than they've ever been before, and the results that you can get are much better. So I think that's it for me for Let's Talk Tuesday. I hope that some of you will watch this video after the fact and get some really interesting ideas, or at least get some questions for the next time. So until next Tuesday, this is Yvonne McCoy saying, Let's Talk Tuesday. Bye.